Good afternoon, guys. My name is John Jensen, and I want to speak to you guys a little bit today about the basic awe and the inspiring things about aviation. My major is commercial aviation at the University of North Dakota, and this first speech is just to be informative, and I'd like to hop straight into it with you guys. So the first three things that I want you guys to kind of think about are sort of the time that we take to travel every day. More so the time that we take to travel longer distances. So if you were to fly from Grand Forks to Sacramento or Grand Forks to LA, something like that, it's not going to take you a horribly long time, maybe 3 or 4 hours, 6 hours all in when you get to the airport early and you leave and get your taxi home. And then the level of efficiency. So if you look at the amount of time that it takes a Boeing 747 to travel from Minneapolis or wherever, if you were to do all of that with a compact vehicle and travel the same amount of people in just those cars, you would be using a whole bunch more fuel. And again, cost reduction. The number of seats inside of the aircraft is a big part of why it's so cost effective for us to travel these days. And they've really started to change the way that the aviation industry functions. See, it used to be a perk for the super rich and the incredibly wealthy. Today, it's cost effective and it's efficient almost for people to fly. It's a lot of times cheaper to fly where you're going than it would be to travel by any other means. So as far as topics and subjects go in this speech, I'd like to address about 4 main topics, and that is, in short, the history of aviation, the prevalence of pilots in the United States population, and joy. Now, the field of aviation is exclusive only by reputation. For the cost of a semester at any private college, you can attain your pilot license, and I'd like to help you sort of understand the beauty and the awe that flight inspires in most, if not all, pilots today. So the incredible feelings that aviation elicits really come down to something that has been created over about 115 years from now. In 1903, December 17th, the Wright brothers were the first pair of men to fly an aircraft underneath its own power. Now, this had a massive engine, and it took an incredible amount of work for them to make this happen, and it was remarkably unstable and unsafe. However, they were the first people to fly an airplane and successfully land. Now, the first death came shortly thereafter. It was actually an Army colonel, I believe, who wound up going with them on a demonstration flight. The Army was starting to look at airplanes as a source of weaponry, as a way to either observe the battlefield or drop things like bombs, which took a very long time before that actually really came into fruition at all. However, on December 17, 1903, that first flight did take place, and since then, in the last 100 or so years, the field has changed so astronomically. It is incredible. If you look at airplanes today being able to land themselves, it's incredible to believe that just 100 or so years ago, they were just barely getting off the ground for 300 feet. So as far as background, I've got about 120 hours of PIC or pilot in command time in a Cessna 172 aircraft. And what that equates to is in about 1,000 hours, I'll be able to get my first job as a commercial airline pilot. Now, the time scale for that can be as short as like 4 years. So from the time that I graduate high school at 18 until I am 22 years old, I might be starting my first job flying airlines for a subsidiary of Delta or whoever else on a pretty small aircraft that might carry, anywhere from 50 to 100 passengers. Pilots were seen in like the 1970s and 80s as sort of the epitome of success, and movies like Airplane have made a satire of this. If you watch the movie, they make a bunch of jokes about how pilots were really just pretty people with no brains, and the airplane did the majority of the work. But times have really changed. Today, the field is much more accessible than it's been in a very long time. More females than ever are entering. And the wages are coming down really rapidly, unfortunately for myself. However, this also sort of explains why people are starting to pursue the passion of aviation more than they're pursuing the lucrative nature of it. And the bottom line is that you can become a pilot. It's not exclusive anymore. Each and every person stands their own chance to enter this field. Now, the cost of learning is close to $10,000, and this isn't a huge number. Now, that sounds like a lot of money, and it is, frankly. But if you look at the cost of the average wedding in the United States being $26, and the average cost per semester of a private school in the United States being $15, $10,000 to get your private pilot's license, which you maintain for the rest of your life for not a whole bunch of money, is incredible. Now, the passion and the experience is a little harder to explain. It's a little different for every person, but any pilot that you've met can explain this to you in their own sort of way. And that is that there is a consuming passion and desire to fly after your first flight. And that's something that really doesn't disappear. It's something along the lines of waking up in the morning, getting onto an airplane, and no matter what, you will watch the sunrise. There are never clouds high enough to stop you from seeing the sunrise in the morning, which is a really incredible perk for any job. Flight in and of itself is something that's really sort of exclusive to the people that have experienced it. And it's incredible. It's awe-inspiring, and it produces this sort of unique rush that is it's a never-ending thirst. It's a black hole. I can't explain it in any sort of way. So the bottom line is that if you shoot for the moon, you're going to land amongst the stars. So begin this training for yourself. Start this, and I guarantee you'll begin to understand just what it is that people love about aviation. There's excitement and there's joy, and it's a family affair. And once you've got, you've had your pilot license for 10 years and you've got kids and a family and you're sitting on a small nest egg, you can buy yourself an airplane. And from that point, it just tumbleweeds. It gets bigger and it gets worse, but it's so consuming and so incredible. It's something that very few people get to actually understand. And as far as comparing the history and what's possible in just 100 years, it's absolutely incredible. Now, in conclusion, I would really like to reiterate that this makes me happy. Commercial aviation, general aviation, and flight bring me joy, and that's something that I would love for more people to understand and experience. Learning is sort of the quintessence of life. If we exist and sit static, if we sit idly, then we get nowhere in life. But aviation is created such that those that partake are enamored with it, and those that partake pursue it as an intellectual feat. Aviators today exist to succeed. People today exist to succeed, and why not succeed in your dreams? I don't know how many people have been like, wow, I long-term goal would love to be a pilot, or, flight just seems like so cool, but gosh, it's expensive and it's hard, but it's not. It's completely attainable, and each and every person out there is completely able. It's just a matter of commitment. There's no such thing as being lazy or procrastinating, and the bottom line is that you didn't want it enough to actually go do it. So anyone can do this. Anyone can become a pilot, barring a few physical or a handful of different mental illness associations, which in most scenarios can be worked around. Now, you could wake up tomorrow and start this career. Whether or not you choose to do this comes down to what you want to pursue. But tomorrow, you could wake up and decide that you want to be a pilot. And that's something that I get to do every morning. So guys, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate every second of it. Thanks so much. My name is John Jensen, and I really do appreciate your hanging around.
There I found you mountain constellations. There isn't sea.